Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast for part 2 of the Azruddin Mohamed extradition video, which we posted last evening on our channel. Be sure to check that out first if you haven't yet, so you can smoothly transition to what we're about to unpack in this video.
Why are the Mohameds applying now for a visa to Venezuela of all countries in the world? Because Venezuela does not have an extradition treaty with the United States of America.
Now let's pick back up from where we left off in part 1, where we were discussing how Guyana government officials, Jagdeo in particular, have accused Azruddin and his father of seeking visas to flee to Venezuela. In a nutshell, Jagdeo says the Mohameds, Azruddin in particular, is working with Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro to undermine Guyana's control over the oil-rich Essequibo region, and by extension, the nation's oil revenue, which is in the billions of US dollars. The government's sole evidence, if you can call it that, is this recent tweet by U.S. Congressman Gimenez, who labeled Azruddin as Maduro's puppet. Therefore, the Guyana government must do everything in its power to block him, Azruddin, from holding political office, whether in a presidential capacity or as a parliamentarian influencing the passing of laws. As far as we know, Guyana laws and the Constitution do not block anyone from applying for a visa to go to another country. You're free to come and go as you please, unless you're banned from a foreign country, like how the Mohameds cannot travel to the United States. They are banned due to the U.S. sanctions, but they are free to go elsewhere. President Irfan Ali, in a special message to the nation about 2 months ago, called Mohamed a threat to Guyana's sovereignty, national security, financial system, etc., etc.
Now the question before us, is Azruddin Mohamed a national security threat? Is he a security risk for Guyana? And let me be lucidly clear on this also. Yes.
Now, Jagdeo is hinting about turning over Azruddin or his father or both of these men to the United States to face the courts for alleged crimes involving gold smuggling, drug trafficking, and money laundering. Therefore, according to Jagdeo, if the Mohameds get away to Venezuela, the Venezuelan government will not turn them over to the United States. Why? Because, according to Jagdeo, Venezuela does not have an extradition treaty with the U.S. Oink, fact check. That's false. Venezuela does in fact have a bilateral agreement or a two-way agreement with the United States, but it does not extradite its own citizens. That's key. Remember that. Furthermore, here is how things are not really adding up. The Mohameds are not citizens of Venezuela unless they'll be seeking protected status as political refugees or something else. Even if the Mohameds are seeking to flee to Venezuela, they would likely remain extraditable until they are citizens. Here is another caveat. If the U.S. government's allegations are true that Azruddin Mohamed is, quote, Maduro's puppet, who is secretly working with the Venezuelan president to undermine Guyana's territorial integrity over Essequibo, then why would Venezuela hand him over to the United States? Wouldn't that be counterintuitive? The more you think of it, the more bizarre the government's allegations seem. But hey, politics is a cutthroat game. So yeah, who knows? And here is an even bigger question. Why doesn't the Guyana government just simply extradite the Mohameds to the US and be done with it? Azruddin in particular, since they're painting him as such a risk to the nation. Why not? Why not? Guyana has the 1931 extradition treaty between itself and the United States, and they could very well extradite someone under the treaty. What's barring Guyana from doing the extradition itself? Ask yourself that. Why allow Azruddin or his father to flee to Venezuela to seek refuge, as they allege? Why not? Wouldn't that be easier? The men are right there, living in Guyana, and Azruddin is running for president. He's legit. So why now? why these talks of extradition and which country does not extradite are coming up now. At this point in the game, when we're 2 weeks or less than 2 weeks away from Guyana's 2025 elections. For now, it seems Guyana political officials are all over the place with allegations after allegations against Mohamed, perhaps in an effort to influence the minds of his supporters and the undecided voters. Now, I don't know about that because it seems to be backfiring, as more and more people are joining Mohamed's party and are distancing themselves from the PPP's regime. What they call it again? The blue wave? Let's see what happens. We have 2 more weeks before Elections Day. Still on Venezuela. Perhaps the government should be focusing more on the droves of Venezuelans entering Guyana without visas. And they may include criminals or spies or gold smugglers or drug traffickers who can undermine Guyana's border security. What are they doing to curb illegal immigration from Venezuela to Guyana? Are government officials protecting the borders? Isn't that a roundabout way of encouraging a threat to border security and potentially a strategic Venezuelan invasion? You already know Maduro has his eyes on Essequibo and Guyana's oil reserves. Now that's the real issue. The Mohameds wanting to travel to Venezuela is not an issue of national interest in the way it's being painted. But here's where things get dicey. Initially, the government alleged that it was Azruddin Mohamed who visited the embassy. But after he denied the allegations, they switched up and pointed fingers to Nazar Mohamed, Azruddin's father. Let's listen to what Jagdeo has to say about this.
I did not go to the Venezuelan embassy. That's what Azruddin Mohamed said. But since it surfaced that the father went to the embassy and they have gone silent.
To implicate Azruddin in his father's affairs, the VP claims Azruddin had to have known the father went to the embassy. Since when knowing someone did something makes you an accomplice or makes you guilty of doing the same thing? Make this make sense. Jagdeo then challenged the father to deny visiting the embassy or applying for a visa. He's confident the allegations are true and says he's willing to put his entire career on the line. Here's that clip.
They can easily come out and put out another statement that they're prone to do all the time, denying that too. That Nazar Mohamed did not visit the embassy and did not seek what they claim was a visa there. They can do that now. Prove me a liar now. In the next 5 minutes, they can put that out. And I'm willing to stake my entire political career on the fact that he did go to the Venezuelan embassy. I'm willing to stake my entire political career because they often say the PPP lies on this matter. The whole family knew why he went there. And the Venezuelan ambassador confirmed that they went there. Well, Nazar Mohamed went there.
Guys, you can't make this stuff up. So what if Azruddin's father visited the embassy? And what if Azruddin knew? Alrighty, on to the next. Let's talk more about Venezuela's extradition treaty as it relates to narcotics trafficking and money laundering. When it comes to Venezuela, here are the key facts to note. According to the United States state.gov website, there is a current extradition treaty between the United States and Venezuela since 1922. The treaty contains a limited list of extraditable offenses, and narcotics trafficking is not one of the listed offenses. But narcotics trafficking and related money laundering are deemed extraditable under the bilateral extradition treaty based on the 1988 United Nations Drug Convention, which Venezuela signed on to with the U.S. Even more significantly, despite this obstacle, Venezuela has demonstrated good faith in extraditing non-Venezuelans to the United States. On other occasions, the Venezuelan authorities have arranged for the deportation or expulsion of non-citizens to stand trial in the United States. So the key takeaway from that are Venezuela has an extradition treaty with the U.S., contrary to what the Guyanese politicians say. Even though this treaty exists, Venezuela does not extradite its own citizens for narcotics trafficking and related money laundering offenses. Plus, right now, it may or may not extradite non-citizens, depending on what side of the bed Maduro wakes up on. Now, this is key when it comes to the government's allegations about the Mohameds seeking to flee to Venezuela to avoid extradition to the United States. Okay. After his rally statement, Jagdeo spoke at his press conference last week about the extradition treaty, why he thinks the Mohameds are seeking visas to Venezuela, and he clarified that the extradition treaty does not allow extradition of Venezuelan citizens. So he finally got it right.
And why would you need, now, weeks before the election, a visa to, if that's the real reason, a visa to Venezuela? And we all know that Venezuela does not allow extradition of people who get citizenship there in that country to the United States of America. And I think this can all be traced back to the Barbados meeting when it didn't go well.
Putting aside Jagdeo's comments for a moment, here is what we know so far about a possible extradition. No extradition request has been reported for Guyana or Venezuela. In other words, there is currently no public indication as of today's date that the U.S. has requested extradition or planning to do so. All reporting focuses on gathering intelligence and pressing local legal action, that's in Guyana, in regards to Mohamed's alleged tax evasion for smuggling gold out of Guyana. And also there is the Guyana Revenue Authority, the GRA's case against Mohamed for evading import duties and taxes for vehicles imported into Guyana from the U.S. We will update you when there is new information on this story. Stay tuned for the next video.